Why is Bilihoo India's best kept secret? Well, because you mostly would have had a cup of coffee. You know, if it's you staying at a beautiful hotel, if it's you working in a big corporate, or if you're traveling, to an offbeat destination, even if you're flying, if you're on a cruise, it's most likely you've had a Bilihoo coffee. If you like your desserts with coffee, if you like your cocktails with your coffee, the star ingredient would have been Bilihoo coffee already. Hi, I'm Bharat Singhal. I'm the founder of a coffee brand called Bili Hu Coffee, and I'm here to share how I build and unwind. I went to design school in Pune, and that is where I came across coffee as a design project. This was in 2011, and it intrigued me so much. I'm personally so inclined towards research that a 3 weeks project became like a 6 months project, and I extended it beyond my graduation, and then I went and pursued coffee with the Coffee Board of India in Bangalore. And I was extremely intimidated by the subject because, I didn't come from a science background. And I realized coffee is all about chemistry, geography, physics, and it's all about agriculture first, right? So there's so much about the plantation, there's so much about how it's grown, where it's grown, and very less about cappuccinos, espressos. So, and cafes was absolutely not a part of the learning process. I mean, it took me a lot of back and forth, but then I came back to Delhi. I was doing great work in design, winning accolades around the world. So back in the day, when I took this idea to my parents that, okay, I want to move away from design so quickly in my career, because I've just received my professional graduation and I want to switch careers completely, get into entrepreneurship. Obviously, they were very apprehensive, but then dad also asked me, "Aisa kya kar rahe ho?" That Tata Birla can't do, and like, how will you compete with the giants and stuff like that. Cut to today, rather 2017 itself. Our first client was the Tata Group, the Taj Group of Hotels, and I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Tata, Mr. Birla. His family's visited us multiple times, and it's not about getting intimidated by anybody. It's about how we all still fit in and create one big community. So, I've grown up in a household of businesses, and my mom has her own thing going on. Dad has been an entrepreneur, first generation, both of them. So, I've literally grown around conversations on dining tables, which are all about work, about clients, and about manufacturing, about the karigars, they're crafting everything basis design briefs of the client. I've seen ups and downs at home. We've seen very, very sad days at home, but we've also seen like great things happening for us. So me and my brother, we've always been around in the business environment at home. So I think what I've picked up most importantly is to show up every single day, irrespective. And also the fact that we eat, drink, breathe our work. So dad's factory has always been in Chhatarpur, and when we go from Noida to Chhatarpur, we would cross that very trafficked area in beyond IIT, up till Qutub Minar. I would always ask Dad, like, why aren't we going that side? Apparently, there are nice stores, there are nice restaurants. So, हमेशा ये था कि coming from a middle class family, there's nothing that you can probably afford there or you can do anything. And why do we have to go there at all? Like, what the hell? But cut to 2018, and each and every restaurant or even stores in Mehrauli, they all were brewing Bilihoo coffee. Not out of agenda of doing that, but just incidental. It so happened that we targeted the who's who of the industry in terms of lifestyle, from furniture to clothing to restaurants, beautiful garden restaurants, terrace restaurants, and it just so happened that every outlet there had Bilihoo coffee. Cut to last year, we got into a contract with DLF to run the coffee shop alongside. And so, just as you enter Emporio with a 24 karat gold ceiling, beautiful chandeliers, and the who's who of the brands of the world, all around us. Sandwiched between them is a coffee shop that we cooperate with DLF now. We manage the coffee there. So, at Bilihoo, what we're doing is very interesting. Okay, I always feel coffee. There was a jump from, let's say, iced frappes with chocolate chips and stuff like that directly to terroir, talking about where it's coming from, how it's grown, what is the elevation. Like, one doesn't really understand what's difference in my cappuccino if it's grown at 3,200 meters or 5,500 meters. So, but there was a big gap. There was no smooth transition for the consumer. So I feel a lot of coffee drinkers across the country are intimidated, and I've spoken about it multiple times. What we're doing at Bili Hu Coffee is just trying to make coffee more relatable, more sexy, more accessible, and play around with it, loosen people up towards great specialty coffee. While everything matters, of course, the soil composition, the weather, everything matters about the coffee, but how do we communicate that? How do we get people to talk about it? Is where we are at. So we play around with cocktails. We work with some of the best alcohol brands around the world, most award-winning whiskeys to the most popular brands. We play around with desserts, plating desserts, packaged desserts. We play around with cold coffees. We're also playing around with South Indian filter coffee. It's garnered so much global attention, but no brand in the country is doing anything about it. And we incidentally did some spectacular work in the South Indian filter coffee space recently. I think that is what creatively satisfies me every day when I come to work, that, one part of the business is wherein we're just looking at sales, and the other part is like, how are we selling and how are we building what we're building. At Bilihoo, we're doing something very interesting wherein it's more about the experience. Every cup of coffee that we brew, or you brew at home, we want it to be an experience. We want you to give that 3 minutes of your time every morning or every once in a while, just to take a break. Give those 3 minutes to yourself. Be present in the moment. Brew yourself a cup of coffee, much like you do your chai or your Maggie. Just give it that much time, and it feels so nice. To me, it's almost therapeutic. If you look at Taj, Oberoi, Porsche, why did they pick us among such a crowded and competitive market? It's all about the nuance. We work with coffee planters across the country every step of the way to ensure that the coffee that reaches your kitchens, the shelves, and your cups is really the best. What is very interesting is that, in India we grow coffees in very unique manner, and everything about why Indian coffee, why not a Colombian coffee or a Kenyan coffee, of course they're all great. India is among the leading coffee growers in the world, but what is very, very unique is just the way of agriculture. And how we play around is we work with different plantations. We process coffees a little differently. Given my design background, my crazy creative mind, a lot of times, I want to do something that is not done before at the plantation level. So that is what I really enjoy. And then we bring forth to your cups some really interesting, exquisite coffees, nothing like what you would have tasted before. And that is what makes people remember Bili Hu Coffee. In India, we grow mostly Robusta coffee. Robusta is a plant variety of coffee, and globally, Arabicas are more popular. However, coffee brands from around the world, leading brands from around the world, they use Indian Robustas in their blends. It's a beautiful Indian coffee. It's something we're all used to, right? Because remember, in Indian coffee, in Indian households, we all add milk and sugar to our coffee. That is stable only in a good Robusta if that is in your cup. So we highly endorse Robustas. There is a massive import duty on coffee in India, and that is primarily so that we're able to encourage our own farmers who are growing great Robusta to also thrive in the ecosystem. Otherwise, if you keep talking about Arabicas, where will the Indian farmer go? We fermented Robustas in different manners so that they're little more palatable per se, because the perception is that Robustas, as the name suggests, would obviously be more robust in nature. But the moment we play around with fermentations, we're able to bring out nicer nuances of a Robusta and surprise you completely with the cup. What is very close to my heart, how I set myself apart from other entrepreneurs in coffee, is my background in design. I hold design thinking very close to me, and design thinking is essentially problem solving, right? Everyday problems, little problems, big problems. How do we solve it? How do we address it? It's not always about the solution, it's mostly about the process. So I play around with different strategies to solve one problem. One problem changes every single day with every client. So it's only about my understanding of the problem and then working towards a solution is what makes me as an entrepreneur different. We work in the Uber luxury space. We work with some of the finest hotels, the most boutique hotels restaurants that are run by passionate chefs and bartenders, the best bars in the country, some really, really passionate neighborhood cafes, and across the spectrum, what I realize is that everybody who we connect with is really showing their love towards coffee, which obviously helps us. If my consumer did not like their own cup of coffee, it would have been a sales job. But every day at work, with the kind of passion people I meet, be it bartenders, mixologists, chefs, or just hoteliers, it's very interesting, because we first connect on coffee and then we talk business. Recently, there's the vice president of a big global group who mentioned doing business with Bharat doesn't feel like doing business. I took that and it stayed with me. It's been a couple of months that this gentleman said this. What is again very interesting is that we leave it to the creative freedom of our partners to play around and like come up with fun menus, play around with how coffee should be served, what should the accompaniments be, how it should be paired. We work very closely with each partner, be it at the Oberoi, be it at an American Express, or be it with like the world's leading chef Wolfgang Puck. Irrespective where we are going, even a small neighborhood cafe, just in Noida, in a community center, there are people very passionate about their coffee, and that same passion, then when they borrow from the learnings that they have working with Bilihoo, they're able to further impart them onto their customer. So, there are a lot of global coffee chains in India today. There are a lot of, in general, Indian coffee chains that have scaled across the country. Why should you choose a homegrown coffee brand? There's no other reason to choose a homegrown coffee brand but just the fact that you're able to relate to them a little more. Each coffee is pretty much like how a chef treats the same vegetable but different chefs. So why would you not, how you would try a different restaurant, why would you not try coffee from a different roaster, for example? Coffee is one of the most complex beverages known to mankind, over and above everything else that we've known, be it wine, whiskey, whatever. It's not me, I mean, the internet will tell you this. But every little thing about coffee, how it's grown, where it's grown, how it's stored, how it's processed post harvest, how it's stored again, and then how it's fermented and then dried, not dried, stored, how it's graded, polished, clean, not polished, basically the entire process. Multiple people come into the chain and they're like, we were looking at it like there are more than 80 people perhaps who touch the coffee before it reaches your cup. So, there's so much work going on. I remember the ILO, International Labour Organization under the United Nations, also took out a hashtag called Coffee People, and we collaborated with them 2 years ago and we talked about coffee people because it's so important that people around the world get to know about the people behind coffee, much like, let's say, what is the rice that you're eating at home, where is that farmer, you might be making a biryani city in New York with that rice, but where is it really coming from? Are the children taken care of? Are the people in the family taken care of? Is there proper sanitization, hygiene, food, shelter? These are all basics, right? It has to be in place. So we take utmost care when we choose planters. We make sure, we connect on that level, and then we talk business much later. So, how do I unwind? So, I'm blessed with a support system at home. I have nieces, right? So, meeting them obviously frees me up to bring in new energy at work. And when every day is showing up at work, I do look up what is happening around the world, and I'm constantly in touch with what is happening in terms of coffee, in terms of lifestyle, in terms of everything else. Like my IQ quotient is pretty high, my GQ quotient is very high, and I'm claiming it by myself, but I like to stay aware with everything that is happening in the country and around the world. I think that brings a lot of good, fresh energy to me every single day. If I'm by myself, I'm very, very particular about how I have my drink. I like it a certain way and I'm very particular about it. And then, max, I would on a Sunday probably take the car and go out for a long drive just by myself with some good music, indie music. And yeah, that's about it. There are more than 300 varieties of coffee, but to you, maybe who loves your coffee at home, it's more important to understand how you like it. If you like it black, how is it fermented? Do you like sweeter notes? Do you like more nutty, more chocolatey? The most interesting part about coffee is from the same beans, you can achieve more or less many, many notes. It could be sweet, sour, bitter, salty, it's fine. When I take these trips to Chikmagalur, and it's mostly during harvest season, So, there's a lot of tension because, we would be spending so much money, of course, but also looking at plantations, what they're doing, how they're doing. And we have a very hectic itinerary. Okay, we have to get up at like 5 a.m. and we probably sleep beyond midnight. But through the day, we're going to different planters. We're seeing the work they're doing, looking at processing, seeing what we want, what we don't want, stuff like that. Also playing around with fermentations, which is out of the planter's comfort zone. It's only me bringing in that creativity and saying, okay, why don't we do this and that and the other. But in between all of this, we also, after taking a little trip to the estate and, seeing the plants, we also brew ourselves a cup of coffee and sit. At that moment, we are not drinking what we're going to buy, but we are just taking a break, uh, you know, bonding with the planter, with their family, understand how they're doing what they're doing, why, sitting on at such plantations, how do they live their lives every day, just that connect. And then we go back to, the business side of it. Next thing, when I come to Delhi, there's a small cafe in Lajpat Nagar. His neighbor is a Kashmiri who runs a beautiful Kashmiri cuisine cafe restaurant. He introduced me, and then the first thing this gentleman had to say is, "Oh, मैं अपना रोज़ा जो है आपकी coffee से तोड़ता हूँ." That was, I think, very special. And like, people have these routines around coffee, which is very, very special when I get to know about it. So yeah, there's many such stories that keep coming to me through somebody or through Instagram or somewhere, and I feel it's beautiful. So when you go visit your favorite coffee shop next time, make sure you say hello to the barista. The guy who's crafting each cup of coffee behind the machine is really a person with a lot of skill and passion, in all likeliness. You must absolutely talk to them about how you like your coffee. It is not a standard thing that will always come the same way. It is just not like that. Just like your Maggie or your mangoes, your fruits, your vegetables, they're not the same every single time, every single day. They're changing, right? Talk to them, have a conversation. The restaurateurs, they invest so much capital into the machinery, put it in the front of house, which is like super prime real estate. And there's a very expert gentleman or a lady standing behind who's crafting each cup to suit your preference. So don't just order from the menu. Please go and talk to them. That little moment that you share with them will also go a long way. And depending on how you like your coffee, you can have a conversation, and I'm sure the barista will be able to personalize it for you. So, Bilihoo is a Kannada word for white flower. That's significant of the coffee blossom. Blossoms mostly at the start of the agricultural year. So let's say just post harvest, there would be rains, and exactly a few weeks after the rain, the coffee flower blossoms. The blossoming of the flower is of huge significance to the planter. There's a lot of celebration. Why? Because the more number of flowers means more number of fruits, because the petals wear off with time, and the bud becomes a fruit, which is a red cherry, and the seed of that red cherry are two coffee beans. So the more number of flowers mean more fruit, means more coffee beans. So it's a huge celebration to them, and it helps them plan for the year ahead. It makes them come back to the plantation every single day because they know what the eventual yield will look like. So yeah, it's really, it marks the promise of a great harvest. What I've really learned is, slowness. If we emphasize on it, is weird, but if we actually incorporate it in an everyday life, it is essential. We do slow down, we do take a pause, we do take a break, we just don't acknowledge it. The moment we acknowledge it, it's more satisfying to go back and get into the hustle and bustle of every day.